Welcome back, everyone. Today, we're going on a deep dive into a really interesting piece of history. This 1978 NASA report on the search for extraterrestrial intelligence. SETI.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Just looking through it, it's incredible.
Yeah.
Like a total time capsule. We've got reports on things like stellar census, radio frequency interference, even alternative methods of communication. There are all these illustrations, too, the Arecibo Observatory,
Right.
which, of course,
It's sad.
sadly is no longer with us.
Yeah.
But looking back at this report, it really felt like back then, they were on the verge of really seriously dedicating resources to this search.
It really captures that feeling
Doesn't it?
of optimism and possibility that kind of defined the early days of SETI.
It does. It makes you wonder, like, imagine being a scientist back then,
Yeah.
totally convinced that this was the moment to get serious about finding ET.
Yeah.
Like, what would be the first thing you do?
Well, first you'd have to convince people that this was worth doing. You'd need a really good reason to sort of change gears to convince everyone, the scientific community and really the whole world that this wasn't just science fiction anymore.
So, like, what happened between, let's say, the 1950s and the 1970s that made astronomers think, okay, this is it. This is the time?
Well, a lot of things changed, actually. For one thing, our whole understanding of planetary systems evolved quite a bit. I mean, early theories suggested that planets were incredibly rare, maybe even unique to our solar system.
Oh, wow.
But by the 70s, new models were suggesting that planets might actually be the norm around stars like our sun.
So we went from thinking that our solar system was like a fluke to realizing that it might be just one of billions.
Exactly. And around the same time, we also started finding organic molecules, the building blocks of life out in interstellar space. And that was a huge deal.
I can imagine.
I mean, if those ingredients are out there floating around between the stars, well, then the possibility of life elsewhere suddenly seemed
a lot more likely.
More planets plus the ingredients for life equals a much higher chance that we're not alone.
Exactly. And there's another point here that's really interesting. The Earth has been unintentionally broadcasting its presence for decades.
Really?
Yeah. Our radio waves, from things like TV broadcasts and radar signals, they're expanding out into space at the speed of light. So essentially, we're kind of announcing our presence to anyone out there listening.
It's like an unintentional cosmic beacon.
It is. So the question is, if we're doing it, wouldn't other civilizations be doing the same thing?
Right. Yeah. That makes sense. So if we're trying to find those signals, where do we even start?
Right.
The report mentioned something called the water hole.
Yeah.
Which I have to admit, the name alone really caught my attention.
It's a pretty catchy name.
Yeah.
And it refers to a specific frequency range in the electromagnetic spectrum, the band between the emissions of hydrogen and hydroxyl radicals.
Right, hydrogen and hydroxyl? Isn't that water? Yeah. That's why it's called the water hole.
I was going to say.
It's the symbolic nod to the essential ingredient for life as we know it.
So we're assuming that aliens are also water-based like us.
Well, it's not quite that simple.
Okay.
There are very solid scientific reasons why this range is a good place to look regardless of alien biology. It's actually a pretty quiet part of the spectrum with minimal background noise, from all the cosmic sources.
Okay.
Plus, there's very little absorption by interstellar dust and gas.
Okay.
So signals in this range, they can travel really vast distances without getting all distorted.
So it's like finding a clear channel on a crowded radio dial.
Yeah, that's a good way to think about it.
But you know what you said about assuming that aliens would be like us? I think that's a really good point.
Yeah.
I mean, some scientists might say that focusing on the water hole is a little too anthropocentric.
It's possible.
Like maybe we're missing other communication channels just because we're looking for something that's familiar to us.
That's true. It's like trying to understand a foreign culture by just looking for things that are familiar.
Exactly.
You might miss all the really unique and interesting parts.
Yeah, exactly. And this whole tension between what we know and what we don't know, that seems to be at the heart of SETI.
Absolutely. We're using what we know about physics and biology to guide our search.
Right.
But we also need to be open to being surprised.
Yeah. It's like a balance between informed speculation and just pure curiosity.
Yeah, I like that.
So let's say we are looking in the right place.
Okay.
At the right frequencies. But space is huge.
It is.
It's almost impossible to comprehend. So wouldn't finding a signal be like finding a needle in a cosmic haystack?
Well, that's one of the biggest challenges, right?
Yeah.
Just the sheer scale of the universe is mind-boggling.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, there's the problem of all the cosmic noise. Imagine trying to hear a whisper over the roar of a jet engine.
Yeah, that does not sound easy.
No, it's not. And then we have to consider the fact that we have limited resources. Telescopes, receivers, data processing, all of that stuff.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of money and resources. So scientists had to be really strategic about how they were going to use those resources.
I can imagine. So do you focus on nearby stars with high sensitivity, hoping to catch a weaker signal?
Right?
Or do you cast a wider net across the sky,
Exactly.
sacrificing sensitivity for breadth?
Yeah, it's a tough choice, like deciding whether to dig deep in one spot or just skim the surface over a larger area.
Yeah. How do you even choose?
Well, it's a complex decision-making process, and this report actually goes into a lot of detail about the different factors to consider.
Okay.
Things like the estimated number of stars with potentially habitable planets, the sensitivity of our instruments, and even the philosophical implications of choosing one strategy over another.
Wow, so many layers to consider.
There are. Okay, so let's say against all odds we do find a signal.
Okay.
How do we know that it's not just some random cosmic event or even worse, interference from our own technology?
Oh, right. Like, how do we know it's really aliens?
Exactly. That's a really important question. So distinguishing a true alien transmission from all the background noise, that's a big hurdle.
Yeah.
We're not just looking for any signal. We're looking for a pattern, a signature that really screams intelligent design.
Okay, so we find a signal.
Yeah.
And we confirm that it's not natural. But then how do we understand it?
That's the next mind-boggling hurdle.
Right.
Decoding. I mean, it's like intercepting a message in a language we've never seen before.
Yeah. We take it for granted when we're talking to each other.
We do.
We assume there's so much shared context.
Yeah.
Even when we're talking to someone from a different culture here on Earth. But trying to understand a message from another species?
Yeah.
From another planet? That would be a whole other level of complexity.
It would, and that's what makes the search for extraterrestrial intelligence so captivating.
Yeah.
It's not just about finding aliens, it's about expanding our understanding of ourselves.
Yeah.
Our place in the universe, the nature of intelligence and communication.
So maybe focusing just on radio waves is too narrow.
It's possible.
What about those alternative methods of communication mentioned in the report?
Right.
Are we talking about things like telepathy?
No, not quite.
Okay.
While the report acknowledges that we can't rule anything out completely,
Yeah.
it does focus on things that are at least somewhat grounded in our current understanding of physics and technology.
So what are we talking about?
Well, one possibility is interstellar travel.
But didn't we already establish that sending a spaceship to another star is basically impossible with our current technology?
Yes, and the report actually talks about that.
Good.
Remember that 40,000-year trip to Alpha Centauri?
Oh, yeah.
Well, even with a hypothetical, matter-antimatter annihilation engine, it would still take decades to get there. And the energy requirements would be astronomical.
Literally astronomical.
Literally astronomical, yeah. So yeah, interstellar travel is still a bit far-fetched.
Right.
At least for now.
So what about those self-replicating probes? The von Neumann probes. The little robots that cruise around the galaxy making copies of themselves,
Right.
leaving them in promising star systems.
That's an idea that really captures the imagination.
It does.
And the report spends some time discussing it.
Okay.
It even suggests that we should be listening for long-delayed radio echoes, which could theoretically be a sign of a probe responding to our signals.
So those weird echoes that some people have reported?
Possibly.
Maybe they're not just atmospheric quirks?
It's a long shot, but the report doesn't rule it out completely.
What about those super civilizations that Freeman Dyson imagined?
Yes.
The ones that have engineered entire star systems for energy?
Dyson spheres.
Yeah.
The report touches on Dyson's ideas as well, particularly the idea that these megastructures, they would radiate really strongly in the infrared, which would make them potentially detectable.
So instead of listening for radio signals, we could be looking for infrared light.
We could.
That's really interesting.
It is. And it highlights a key point from the report. We may need to think outside the box when it comes to communication.
Right.
I mean, we're trying to imagine what an alien civilization might do based on our own limited experience and technology. But who knows what they might be capable of?
Yeah. It's almost humbling, isn't it?
It is. It reminds us that we're really confronting the limits of our own understanding, pushing the boundaries of our imagination.
So it's not just about finding aliens. It's about expanding our own horizons.
It is.
Our own understanding of what's possible.
I like that. And that exploration that's valuable in itself,
Yeah.
even if we never find definitive proof of alien intelligence.
Okay, so that actually leads perfectly into our next topic.
Okay.
What is the impact of SETI,
Right.
whether we find aliens or not?
Exactly.
Because if we never find aliens, would that mean that all this effort was a waste of time and resources?
Not at all. And the report has a whole section explaining why there are technological spin-offs, philosophical implications, and even the potential for stronger international cooperation.
Right.
All of those things are valuable outcomes, regardless of whether we find ET or not.
All right, well, let's unpack those ideas a little bit more
Okay.
after a quick break.
Sounds good. So let's talk about those technological spin-offs.
Sure.
Developing the tools and techniques for SETI has actually led to some really interesting advancements in other areas.
Like what?
Well, signal processing,
Okay.
radio astronomy, and even just our general understanding of the cosmos.
So it's kind of like when you build a powerful new microscope.
Yeah,
Even if you don't immediately discover a new species,
right.
the tool itself opens up all sorts of new avenues of exploration.
That's a great way to put it. For example, the Very Large Array,
Uh-huh.
that incredible collection of radio telescopes in New Mexico.
Yeah.
It was actually initially designed with SETI research in mind.
Oh, wow.
But it's become an invaluable tool for astronomers studying all kinds of things.
Yeah.
Black holes, the evolution of galaxies.
So even if we don't find aliens,
Mm,
we'll definitely learn more about the universe along the way.
exactly. So now let's move on to those philosophical implications.
Okay.
What does it mean for humanity to be alone in the universe?
Yeah.
What are our responsibilities in this vast, possibly silent cosmos?
Wow. Those are some heavy questions.
They are.
I actually remember reading somewhere that the discovery of extraterrestrial life would be the most profound event in human history.
It would definitely be a game changer, and the report actually talks about that.
Okay.
This idea of a paradigm shift.
Right.
It explores the impact such a discovery might have on our religions, our philosophies,
Yeah.
our whole understanding of our place in the universe.
It's like suddenly realizing that the story of humanity
Yeah.
is just one chapter in a much larger cosmic narrative.
Exactly. And even if we don't find evidence of other civilizations,
Right.
just the act of searching forces us to confront these questions.
Yeah.
It makes us consider the possibility that we might be the only intelligent life in the universe.
Which is both humbling and a little bit terrifying.
It is. It's like looking into a mirror and seeing not just ourselves, but our place in this vastness of existence.
And speaking of a larger perspective, the report also talks about the potential for SETI to foster international cooperation.
Yes, it really emphasizes that SETI is something that goes beyond national boundaries.
Right.
It's a global quest that requires us to work together, to
Yeah.
share resources and expertise to achieve a common goal.
It's a good reminder that even with all our differences here on Earth, we're all united by our curiosity about the universe.
Exactly. And that shared sense of wonder can be incredibly powerful.
Okay, so there's one specific part of the proposed SETI program
Yeah.
that really caught my eye.
Okay.
It's this idea of a stellar census.
Yeah, that's an interesting one.
What is a stellar census and why is it so important for SETI?
Imagine a giant library
Okay.
filled with information about every single star.
Hmm.
Its type, its size, its distance, its age, its chemical composition,
Yeah.
and most importantly, whether it has planets orbiting it. That's basically what a stellar census aims to create.
So it's like a roadmap for SETI.
It is. You can't search for something if you don't know where to look.
Right.
And a stellar census would provide astronomers with this detailed catalog of stars, allowing them to prioritize their search efforts.
Makes sense. Narrowing down the suspects in a cosmic detective story.
Yeah, exactly. But creating something like that,
Yeah.
it would be a huge undertaking.
It would. How would we even go about doing that?
Well, it would require some pretty advanced technology and a lot of international collaboration.
Okay.
The report suggests a multifaceted approach,
Hmm.
automated telescopes, computer-controlled analysis, and a network of observatories all working together to cover the entire sky.
So it's not just about the hardware.
Right.
It's also about the software, the data analysis, and the human collaboration.
Absolutely. And the benefits of this kind of project,
Yeah.
they would extend far beyond just SETI.
Okay.
A stellar census would be incredibly valuable for astronomy in general. It would provide a comprehensive database that could be used to study all sorts of cosmic phenomena.
So it's like building a detailed map of a new continent.
Yeah.
It benefits not just the initial explorers,
Right.
but everyone who comes after.
Exactly. And speaking of benefits, the report also highlights how SETI technology could really advance radio astronomy as a whole.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. The same tools and techniques used to search for alien signals can also be used to study other things in space.
I could see that, like the ability to detect faint signals in all that cosmic noise would be super helpful for studying distant galaxies.
Right.
Or maybe even those faint remnants of the Big Bang.
Exactly. And all those sophisticated data processing techniques
Yeah.
that have been developed for SETI
Right.
could be used to analyze all the massive data sets that are generated by modern radio telescopes.
So it's a win-win for both SETI and radio astronomy.
It is. It really shows how interconnected all these different scientific disciplines are. How advancements in one area can benefit other seemingly unrelated fields.
It's like having a high-powered microscope
Right.
that you can use to study everything from tiny cells to distant galaxies.
A perfect analogy. Okay, so let's shift gears for a moment.
Okay.
And talk about a challenge that's a little closer to home. The problem of radio frequency interference, or RFI.
Oh, yeah, I remember reading about that.
Yeah.
Basically, our own technology could be creating a lot of noise
Right.
that might interfere with our ability to detect faint signals from space.
Exactly. And the report actually spends a good chunk of time talking about this problem.
Okay.
Exploring the different sources of interference
Yeah.
and possible strategies for minimizing its impact.
It's kind of ironic, isn't it?
It is.
We're searching for signals from alien civilizations, but our own planet is so noisy, we might be drowning out those signals.
It's like trying to hear a whisper in a crowded room.
Right. So what are some of the main sources of this interference?
Well, pretty much everything. Radio and television broadcasts,
Okay.
satellite communications, radar systems, even cell phones.
So it's not just about building bigger telescopes
Right.
and more sensitive receivers. We also need to figure out how to quiet down our own planet.
We do. And the report goes into some detail about different strategies for mitigating RFI.
Right.
Like carefully choosing where we build our radio telescopes.
Okay.
Finding locations that are far away from sources of human-made noise.
Yeah, like remote mountaintops or deserts.
Exactly. But it's harder to deal with all the things that are already up in orbit.
Right, like all the satellites.
Yeah. And the report really stresses the need for international agreements and regulations
Okay.
to protect certain frequency bands for radio astronomy. It's a global problem that needs a global solution.
It's like we all need to agree to dim the city lights so we can see the stars better.
A perfect analogy. It requires us to prioritize those long-term goals
Yeah.
over our immediate earthly conveniences.
So the search for extraterrestrial intelligence, it's not just a scientific endeavor.
It's
It's a cultural and societal challenge.
It is. It requires cooperation, compromise, and a shared vision.
Now let's talk about something that's always captured my imagination.
Yeah. Okay.
Interstellar travel.
Ah,
I mean, it's the stuff of science fiction,
it is.
but is it even remotely feasible?
Well, that's the question, isn't it?
It is.
And the report really digs into both the difficulties and the possibilities of this idea.
Yep.
It acknowledges that with our current technology, interstellar travel is still a distant dream. The distances are just too vast.
Yeah.
The energy requirements are astronomical, and the engineering challenges are just mind-boggling.
I mean, we talked earlier about how even getting to the nearest star system
Right.
would take tens of thousands of years with our current technology.
It would.
So are there any alternatives?
Well, the report does explore a range of potential propulsion systems.
Okay, like what?
Things like advanced chemical rockets,
Okay.
nuclear fusion, and even some more speculative concepts.
Like antimatter engines or warp drives?
Warp drives.
Yeah,
That's straight out of Star Trek.
it is. Now, the report doesn't say that any one of these technologies is the answer.
Right.
But it does encourage continued research
Okay.
and exploration of these possibilities.
So basically, we're still in the very early stages of understanding the universe and the laws of physics.
We are.
So who knows what breakthroughs might be out there?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that spirit of scientific curiosity,
Yeah.
that willingness to push the boundaries of what we think is possible, that's really at the heart of SETI.
It's not about having all the answers right now.
Right.
It's about embracing the unknown,
Yeah.
asking those big questions, and being open to the possibility that the universe might surprise us.
I like that. And that brings us to another really important question.
Okay.
What if, after all this searching, we find absolutely nothing?
Yeah, that's a thought that's always kind of lingered in my mind.
It's like when you look up at the night sky and realize how vast and empty it seems.
Yeah.
It can make you feel both insignificant and incredibly lonely.
The report acknowledges that feeling, that existential anxiety. It explores what a null result might mean,
Right.
both philosophically and psychologically.
It's like a cosmic mirror reflecting our own isolation.
Exactly. And the report considers a lot of different interpretations of a null result. Some people might see it as evidence that we truly are alone.
Yeah.
A cosmic fluke in this vast, indifferent cosmos.
Right.
While others might argue that it just means we haven't been looking long enough.
Okay.
Or that we haven't developed the right technology to detect these subtle signs of alien civilizations.
So even if we don't find anything, it doesn't mean that the question of extraterrestrial intelligence is closed.
It doesn't. It might just mark a new chapter in our exploration.
Right.
A challenge to push the boundaries of our knowledge and continue our quest to understand our place in the cosmos.
So the search itself is valuable,
Yes.
regardless of the outcome.
It is.
And the very act of searching, of questioning, of exploring, is a part of what makes us human.
I agree. And that actually brings us to another really important point.
Yeah.
The importance of understanding how planetary systems form and evolve. After all, to find life, we first need to find planets that could potentially support it.
Right. It's all connected.
It is.
But doesn't that mean we need to do even more research?
Well, in a way, yes.
Okay.
But we've already come a long way
Okay.
in understanding planetary formation. The most widely accepted theory is that planets form from the leftover material after a star is born.
Okay.
This swirling disk of gas and dust that gradually clumps together.
I remember learning about that in school.
Yeah.
Like a cosmic pizza dough
I love that.
being tossed and spun,
Yeah.
gradually forming a delicious planetary pie.
That's a great image. And this process can lead to a huge variety of different planetary systems, each one with its own unique characteristics and potential for harboring life.
Which makes our search even more complicated?
It does, but it also makes it more exciting.
I can see that.
I mean, the diversity of planetary systems means there's a much wider range of possibilities for life to emerge.
So we've got planets forming around stars.
Okay.
What about that next step?
Right.
How do we get from non-living matter to life?
The age-old question of abiogenesis.
Yeah.
The report acknowledges that this is still a big mystery.
It is.
Even back in the 1970s, scientists were struggling with it.
Right.
But there was some promising research going on,
Right.
like those lab experiments that simulated the early Earth's atmosphere and managed to create amino acids.
Yeah. Those experiments showed that it's at least possible
Right.
to create those basic ingredients of life
Yeah.
from inorganic matter under the right conditions.
Exactly. And the report also talks about the discovery of organic molecules in interstellar space, which further supports this idea that the building blocks of life are pretty common throughout the universe.
So it's not about some magical spark of life.
Right.
It's more like a series of chemical reactions driven by energy from things like sunlight or lightning, gradually building up to more and more complex molecules.
Exactly. And this process of chemical evolution,
Yeah.
it could be happening on countless planets all over the cosmos.
So the universe is basically primed for life.
It seems that way. The ingredients are there.
Mm-hmm.
The conditions might exist on countless planets.
Yeah.
And given enough time, the extraordinary might become inevitable.
Okay, so let's say life does arise on another planet.
Okay.
What would it take for that life to become intelligent? I mean, intelligent in the sense that it could build radio transmitters or spaceships.
Right. Well, the report dives into that question as well,
Okay.
exploring different evolutionary pathways that might lead to intelligence, drawing on insights from all sorts of different fields like paleontology and ethology. Okay. It considers things like environmental pressures, social structures, and even competition and conflict as factors that might drive the development of complex brains and cognitive abilities.
So it's not just about having a big brain.
No, it's not. The report looks at several different hypotheses.
Okay.
One idea is that intelligence might be linked to the development of language,
Okay.
the need to communicate,
Right.
to coordinate actions, to share ideas. All of that could have pushed our ancestors to evolve more sophisticated brains.
So the need to connect with others might actually be a driving force behind intelligence.
It's an interesting thought, isn't it?
It is.
The report also explores the idea that intelligence might be favored in environments that are unpredictable and challenging.
Oh, so a little adversity might actually be good for the brain.
That's one way to look at it. And it raises an important question.
That's a...
What kind of planets should we be looking for if we're searching for intelligent life?
That's a great question.
And that's a perfect segue into our next discussion.
Let's look at the specific search strategies outlined in the report.
All right, let's do it.
Exploring the challenges and the possibilities of trying to find a needle in the cosmic haystack.
So we talked about interstellar travel and those challenges, and the possibility of finding planets that could actually support life.
Right.
But how do we actually search for those signals from alien civilizations? I mean, where do we even begin?
Well, that's where this report really gets into the details of SETI research.
Okay.
It lays out this whole framework for thinking about search strategies, taking into account things like our technology, the vastness of space, and all the unknowns about how aliens might behave.
So it's not just about pointing a giant telescope at the sky and hoping for the best.
No, it would be nice if it were that easy.
Right.
But unfortunately, it's not. The report emphasizes that we need to be really systematic and strategic about it.
Okay.
We need to figure out which frequencies to target, which directions to focus on.
And how to efficiently process all the data we collect. It's a really complex problem.
Yeah, it sounds like SETI researchers need to be both creative and incredibly organized.
They do. And the report actually explores a bunch of different search strategies, each with its own pros and cons. One approach is to focus on what we call targeted searches, where we aim our instruments at specific stars that we think are good candidates for having planets with life.
So instead of casting a wide net, we're focusing on a smaller number of promising targets.
Right. So what kind of stars would we be looking at?
Right. What kind of stars?
Well, we'd want to start with stars that are similar to our own sun.
Okay.
Stable, long-lived, and with a habitable zone where the temperatures would allow liquid water.
Right. That makes sense. But wouldn't that limit our search?
It could.
What if there's something amazing out there that we miss just because we're not looking in the right place?
That's definitely a possibility, and the report acknowledges that limitation of targeted searches. That's why it also talks about sky surveys, which involve scanning large portions of the sky systematically, hoping to catch something interesting.
So it's that classic trade-off between depth and breadth.
Exactly.
Do you focus your resources on a few really promising targets, or do you cast a wider net?
Right. And the report doesn't pretend to have all the answers.
Okay.
It emphasizes that we need to keep doing research experimenting and be willing to change our strategies as our technology improves and as we learn more about the universe.
So it's a constantly evolving process.
It is.
I've always been fascinated by all the cool technology that's come out of SETI research.
Yeah.
I read somewhere that SETI has been a driving force behind a lot of advancements.
It has.
In things like signal processing and computing.
Absolutely. The challenges of SETI have really pushed us to come up with new tools, new techniques, new ways of thinking, and those innovations have had a huge impact on other fields.
Can you give me some examples?
Sure. One area that's benefited tremendously is signal processing.
Yeah.
The need to detect those really faint signals buried in cosmic noise.
Yeah.
That's led to the development of some incredibly sophisticated algorithms.
Okay.
And those are now used in all sorts of things.
Like what?
Medical imaging, telecommunications.
So the same technology that helps us listen for aliens can also help us diagnose diseases and improve our cell phone reception.
Exactly. And SETI has also had a major impact on computing. I mean, all that data generated by SETI searches, it's pushed the development of faster and more powerful computers, as well as sophisticated data analysis techniques that are now being used in finance weather forecasting, even artificial intelligence.
So the quest for extraterrestrial intelligence has actually helped us to better understand our own planet and even our own economy.
It has. And it's a great example of how all these different areas of science, they can benefit from each other's advancements.
It's like this reminder that science is all about collaboration.
It is.
It's a collective pursuit of knowledge that goes beyond those traditional disciplinary boundaries.
I like that.
Yeah.
Now let's talk about something a little more philosophical.
Okay.
What would it mean for humanity if we actually discovered that we're not alone?
Yeah.
What if there are other intelligent civilizations out there?
Right.
Maybe even ones that are way more advanced than us.
That is a question that has boggled my mind for a long time.
It has a lot of people. And this report actually explores that question,
Okay.
acknowledging the profound impact that such a discovery would have on our understanding of ourselves,
Yeah.
our place in the universe, even the meaning of life itself.
It's almost impossible to wrap your head around.
It is. It would be like discovering that everything we thought we knew about ourselves and the cosmos
Yeah.
was just a tiny piece of a much bigger and more complicated puzzle.
Exactly. And how would we even react to that?
Well, the report explores a whole range of potential reactions. Some people might be thrilled to know that we're part of a larger cosmic community,
Right.
while others might be scared or anxious,
Yeah. I can see that.
worried about what a more advanced civilization might do.
It's like that classic science fiction trope.
Mm-hmm.
Aliens come to Earth and they either want to help us or destroy us.
Right. But the report cautions us against jumping to conclusions.
Okay.
We have no idea how an alien civilization might react to us.
That's true. So it's all just speculation at this point.
It is. But it's still worth thinking about.
Right.
What are the potential consequences? How do
Yeah.
we prepare ourselves for the unknown?
So the report encourages us to be humble,
Mm-hmm.
curious, and open to learning.
It does. And it also reminds us that intelligence doesn't necessarily equal wisdom or kindness.
So even if we did meet aliens,
Yeah.
there's no guarantee that it would be a good thing.
That's right. We need to be prepared for all sorts of possibilities,
Yeah.
both positive and negative.
Right.
And the report really emphasizes the importance of careful planning, thinking through those risks and rewards,
Mm-hmm.
and being committed to open and honest communication.
So the search for extraterrestrial intelligence,
Yeah.
it's not just about science.
Right.
It's also a huge cultural and ethical challenge
It is.
that makes us confront some of the most fundamental questions about who we are and where we belong in the universe.
And I think that's a perfect way to sum up this report.
Yeah.
It's a testament to human curiosity, ingenuity, and our fascination with the cosmos.
It really is. It's like a roadmap for exploration,
Mm.
a call to action.
Right.
Yeah.
And a reminder that the search for other intelligent life is this incredible journey that will challenge us to expand our understanding of everything.
It's been a really amazing journey exploring this report with you.
I've enjoyed it.
And even though we don't have all the answers,
Mm-hmm.
I think we can all agree that the search itself
Yeah.
is really a testament to that boundless human spirit of exploration.
I couldn't agree more. The universe is this vast and mysterious place,
It is.
full of wonders just waiting to be discovered.
And who knows what incredible surprises are out there
Right.
as we continue to listen to search and to explore the cosmos with open minds and hopeful hearts.
Beautifully said.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive
Yeah, thanks for having me.
into the search for extraterrestrial intelligence.
It's been fun.
And until next time, keep looking up.